Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Brandy, and this is Paradise Bags by Brandy. Today we're going to be learning how to make the LeBelle Baguette and Handbag by Inaliti Design. A fantastic pattern that is new, that just came out in October, and it makes a beautiful classic style baguette bag. It does feature a turn lock flap here in the front, along with a slip pocket. In the top you have a zippered gusset, and then on the inside you have this fantastic zipper divided pocket along with some slip pockets. This is one style that I made. It does have this really unique side adjustment for the strap. This other one here, same thing. And that side connector, and you can choose to use a bridge connector, a metal ring. You can choose to make your own. But again, this side here does adjust up or down. On this one, I chose to make a turn lock to go with the flap. Again, that gorgeous top zipper gusset there. On the inside, same thing. We have some slip pockets on either side of the bag. This does come in two different sizes, so you have small and large. So you can kind of see the difference in size there. We'll be making this one today, and in this one I chose to use a tongue lock instead of a turn lock. That top zipper gusset, I just love this so much. And that zippered, divided zipper pocket that's in there. I'll also be doing some pen pockets on our slip pocket here on the inside. Some things that I'm doing a little bit different with this pattern is that I chose to leave my slip pockets raw edged, so I didn't back them with any type of cotton woven. I just left the vinyl raw, and I kind of explain in the video how to do that. Fantastic pattern. It comes together so quick and so easy. You can really make this all within the weekend. So let's get started. Okay, so now that we have all of our pieces cut and ready to go, there is some prep work that we need to do beforehand. So pull out your bottom panel C, your gusset panel E, your exterior panel A, and your flat panel B. We're going to start with the flat panel. On your flat panel, you should already have it glued together. So I have mine already glued and ready to go. Your stabilizer should be on the inside here. We're going to end up sewing this first. That way, if you want to edge paint the edge of it, you can do that and let it dry before we're ready to put this on. Pull out your bottom panel C, and we need to mark where we're going to put our purse feet, if you choose to put purse feet on there. Now, we already this pattern already has the holes marked for you, so we're just going to take a pen and mark those holes so that we know where to put our purse feet. Okay, and then you'll want to cut your either cut them with a slit if you're doing them with pronged feet, or if you're doing screw-in feet, then you would want to actually punch a small hole to put that screw in there and then attach your purse feet. Pull out gusset panel E, and we need to mark some lines on the wrong side of panel E. This is easier if you do it now rather than waiting till the end to make these marks. But we're going to do a 1/2 inch mark and a 1 inch mark. And this is just so we have some type of visual for when we go to fold this down, because of this being a drop-in lining. So we want to do that on both sides. It's easier to do it now rather than when the purse is finished and trying to get your ruler in there and finagle it around and get a nice, good, clean line. Okay, so just like that on both of them. Okay, set this to the side. Pull out one of your exterior panel A pieces. And on the wrong side, I just want you to, so you should already have your 1/2 inch line marked at the top from where you added your stabilizer, but we need to add that 1 inch line as well. So I'm just going to make a mark here on either side. And then I'm going to use my panel piece to actually draw this out. So I'm just going to line that up centered and draw that 1 inch line out. Again, this is easier to do it now rather than waiting till the end to do it. And this line is very important when we go to fold our top down for the drop-in. If you use your pattern piece, it's just easier than using a ruler and trying to get it all marked out. So just like that. We're going to do that on the other panel. So line your sides up, line your center up, and mark that 1 inch line. I'm doing it in red so that you guys can see it better. I wouldn't normally mark it in red. Okay. So now you should have 2 exterior panel A pieces marked and ready to go as part of your prep. So go ahead and pull that flat piece out, and we're going to stitch this along the raw edge all the way around. She says in the pattern to start down a certain amount of inches. I just sew the entire thing. You can, if you choose, if you don't feel confident to go back over your stitches when we attach this to the panel, you can choose to start down a few inches and leave it blank. That way you won't have double stitching across this bottom piece. I just sew the entire thing. And then I do use a 1/16 of an inch guided foot to sew this. And I'm going to sew this at a 4mm stitch length. I prefer to sew it all the way around also because when I go to edge paint this, it'll just be easier to edge paint as well. Make sure you're going slow in those curves. We want a nice clean edge. Okay, so just like that. all the way around and around the curve. So now your flat piece is ready to be edge painted if you choose to do that. Otherwise, you can just set this off to the side for right now. Go ahead and pull out your exterior slip pocket H. So exterior slip pocket H. And we're going to turn these to where they're right sides together, lining up your center and your edge pieces. We're going to clip along our top edge here, and we're going to sew it at 3/8 inch of a seam allowance, and then we're going to clip into our curve so that we can turn it right side out and top stitch it. Okay, so now we have our exterior pocket sewn. Again, that was right sides together, and then turn it out and top stitch it here at the top of the panel. So now we want to install our tongue lock, flip lock, magnetic snap, whatever you're doing. If you're doing a magnetic snap, make sure that you've installed your magnetic snap to your flap before you glued those together. So hopefully you did that. And then because I'm doing a tongue lock, I need my male portion to be lower than the original placement. Now, if you're doing a turn lock, then this original placement will be just fine. But I noticed that with a tongue lock, so I need to mark this down a little bit lower. So in testing, I found that if I mark this down 1 inch below the bottom of my original placement, let me mark this on the pattern so you can kind of see it. So here's our original placement. If you're going to do a tongue lock, then you want to mark it down 1 inch below the bottom. Kind of show this way. So here's the bottom of my placement. So you want to go 1 inch below the bottom of the original placement and mark it there. That's where we're going to install our male portion of our tongue lock. So I just make a little mark there so I know that that's going to be the top of my male portion. So that's the top, so I'm just going to lay my bracket down. Grab the male portion of my tongue lock. And make sure that I'm marking the right places. So make sure that bracket is centered up. Mark your placement. Okay, and then you'll install this male portion of your tongue lock. Flip your wrong side back over, and then base stitch this whole thing in place. Okay, so now we should have our tongue lock or whatever male portion of your lock that you're choosing, whether it be a tongue lock, magnetic snap, or even a turn lock. But you should have that now installed on your front exterior slip pocket. We're going to grab exterior panel piece A. You should already have your centers marked. And we're going to add our slip pocket to exterior panel A. We're going to clip this in place, and we're going to baste it onto this panel. So just clip all the way around. I am using mini binder clips. I have found that they hold far better than the plastic Wonder Clips, and I got tired of the plastic Wonder Clips breaking on me. So I switched over to these, and they've been wonderful ever since. So just like that. So now we're going to baste this in place all the way around all 3 sides. And then when we get back, we'll install our flap onto the other portion of exterior panel A. So make sure that your edge coat is completely dry for that section. Okay, so now you should have your flap edge painted, or if you're using a Sharpie marker or whatever the case may be, but that should now be done and completely dry. Go ahead and set this to the side for a moment. Grab exterior panel A without the pocket. and we're going to mark where our flap is going to go. So on the pattern here, she has it marked out where that flap is going to go. We want to mark where that bottom line is at. That bottom solid line. So line your pattern up centered and just put a little mark there. And then I like to take my ruler and mark it out the rest of the way. So we're going to mark 3 inches. So that's the center. We're going to mark 1.5 to one side and 1.5 to the other. And just with some type of erasable pen. I'm using a white gel pen because that comes off really easy from vinyl. So now what we want to do is we want to take and add our flap. Make sure that your print orientation is correct. So if I look this way, this is actually the wrong way, and this is the right way. So make sure your flap orientation is correct. Line that up centered. You may want to put an extra couple of clips here just to make sure that they stay. And then we're going to sew across the bottom, up a couple of stitches, back over, and then back down. Okay, so I have installed my flap and sewn it on the exterior back side of panel A, and then I went ahead and installed the female portion of my tongue lock. So go ahead and set this panel off to the side. You want to pull out your 2 strap connectors. We're going to mark the center of these strap connectors. So right down, so about, well, not about, an inch away from either side will be your center because these are 2 inches wide. And then we're going to take and fold these to the center line. You can use double-sided sticky tape. It's not going to be in the seam allowance, so you can absolutely use some double-sided sticky tape here if you would like. And then when we do that, we'll come back and start doing some measurements on these strap connectors. Okay, so now we should have our strap connectors folded into the center. So you can see my center, they're just folded into the center and butted up nice and even with each other. So we need to make some marks with our ruler. So on the right side, and I say right side because we need to make marks on the wrong side as well, and I don't want you to get confused. So on the right side, I want you to make a mark 2 inches down, and you don't have to go all the way across. Just right here on the edge. Again, use a pen that you can wipe away. Just right on the edge there. Okay. So 2 inches down. And then on the wrong side, I want you to make a mark that is 1.5 inches centered on just one strap. Okay, don't do it on the other one. Well, actually, go ahead and do that 1.5 inch mark on the other end, on the other strap, and I'll explain here in just a second. Okay, so now you should have 2 different markings. You should have on the right side 2 inches down, and then on the wrong side 1 inch down. We're going to top stitch the right side from the top of our raw edge to that 2 inch mark. Don't go past it, to that 2 inch mark. We're going to pull our threads to the back. You can tie them off or just melt them. Either way is just fine. On either side, on both of our straps. On one of our straps, where that 1.5 inch mark is, we're going to take a punch, similar to this, and we're going to punch a hole centered at that 1.5 inch mark. Only on one strap though. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so now I have both of my straps top stitched. I know that's really hard to see because it's black on black. And then I went ahead and punched my hole for my buckle. Make sure whatever hole you choose is big enough so that when we fold this over, that buckle won't be constrained within that hole. Okay, and then on the other side, just make sure that it is not punched at all. So go ahead and grab out your buckle. I'm using option B buckle where I've got the tongue piece here. So we're going to have to do a couple of extra things with this particular strap. So grab that, grab your other rectangle ring, and on the wrong side, where that first 1.5 inch line is at, I want you to mark again another 1.5 inches from that line, or you could also say 3 inches from the edge. And just put a little mark there. Okay. Grab you a little bit of double-sided sticky tape. Just a small piece. You don't need anything big. We're going to add a piece here at the top. Grab your rectangle ring and slide that onto the strap that has no hole. Line it up with that first 1.5 inch mark. Okay, that very first one. We're going to fold this over to the second 1.5 inch mark, or you could also look at it as being the 3 inch mark. Hold that down. You can add a clip or two to it just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. So just like this. Okay, and we'll come back and we'll erase those white lines. With your other strap, same thing, grab you just a small piece of double-sided sticky tape. So just a small piece, nothing big. And add that to the bottom of your strap. Take your buckle. So this is the right side of my strap. Take your buckle and kind of pull that tongue out of the way. Slip your strap on. Put the buckle in, or the tongue in the hole. Okay, just like this. And we're going to line it up with that first 1.5 inch mark. Pull our backing off, and then fold it down to match that second 1.5 inch mark, and make sure that your punch holes are lined up as even as possible. So mine was off a little bit, so let me pull this back some. Making sure those punch holes are lined up just makes it a lot neater looking. And then just add a clip or two. Okay. So just like this. So now you can see this is free to move around. It's not getting stuck on the vinyl or anything like that. Okay, so now we want to add some double-sided sticky tape and just go up, I don't know, maybe 3/4, ½ inch, 3/4 past our raw edge, all the way down the center of your strap connector, because again, we want to keep this out of the seam allowance. All the way down the center. And do this on both strap connectors. So there's one, and then here is my second one. And I'm using Hyperstick double-sided sticky tape from Wall Whack. I highly recommend it. It is comparable in price to other double-sided sticky tapes, but it is very sticky and it works very well. Okay, so now we have 2 strap connectors, one with a rectangle ring and one with our buckle. Go ahead and pull out your piece E piece. And we need to make a mark on this piece E piece. So from the edge, let me mark my center real quick, because it makes it easier to make sure we get this all nice and centered up. So just a little notch in the top of our panel here. We'll just take and cut a little wedge in it. And we want to mark down from our short edge here 1 3/8 inch. And draw a line. I do draw the full 1 inch line just to make sure that I'm going to get these nice and straight. Okay. So I'm going to start with my one with my rectangle ring, because I'm going to need to do some extra steps to this strap connector since I'm using option B buckle. Okay, line that up with that 1-inch mark, nice and straight, all the way down. Okay, so you should have it all the way down on your piece here. If you want to grab your ruler and kind of measure some spots out to make sure, you can do that. Just to make sure it's good and straight. Let's see, I'm a little crooked here, so let's see if I can't peel this up and get it a little bit more straight. A lot of times I try and eyeball it, but sometimes eyeballing it just isn't quite enough. Let's try that again. Woo. All right, let's try that one more time. So I can try this just one more time. Should be roughly 1.5 inches from the edge. There we go. Okay, now I got it. Sometimes it just takes a couple of times. Okay, so go ahead and set this piece off to the side, and let me show you what we're going to do with this piece since we're using that option B buckle with the tongue on it. So because we're using this buckle here, we need to add some type of strap anchor so that when the strap goes through here, the strap will be held in place. I am using, hang on, I dropped it. So you can use a strap anchor, you can create your own strap anchor if you would like, or you can use a really thin rectangle ring like this one here. This is what I'm choosing to use. I didn't have a true strap bridge in gunmetal, so I'm going to use this one instead. So from our folded edge, go ahead and pop these clips off. From our folded edge, we need to make 2 more markings. We're going to make one at 2 inches from the folded edge. Okay, and then one more marking 1.5 inches from the folded edge. Okay, and then we're going to top stitch in between these markings here on either side. It just gives it a nice cleaner look when we go to attach it to panel E. So go ahead and do those top stitchings there if you're using this type of buckle, and then flip it over, add your double-sided sticky tape if you haven't done that already, and then attach this to panel E the same way that we did for the other strap connector. Okay, so now I have done that little bit of faux top stitching there. Again, I apologize. I should have thought about not doing black on black, but you can see where I've done that little bit of faux top stitching there. So let's kind of talk about the different types of strap bridges, strap anchors, a stay, whatever you may want to call it. This is called a strap bridge. It is a piece of hardware that you would actually install. If you're using this type of strap anchor or strap bridge, you would not need to do this type of, this step here. You would just simply attach it to panel piece E, top stitch it all the way, and then add this afterwards by installing the screws on the back, so punching holes and then installing the screws on the back. And these work just perfectly fine as well. I did the additional step because I'm using a small rectangle ring. You would also need to do this additional step if on this blue bag I showed you if I can't get this on camera here, where I made my own strap bridge. Okay, so depending on which type of strap bridge, strap anchor, if you're gonna do a strap loop, whatever you want to call it, whatever style you're gonna use will depend on whether or not you actually need to do this additional top stitching. So if you're using a strap bridge, you would not need to do this additional top stitching. But if you're going to use a small rectangular ring, or if you're going to make your own, you would need to do this additional top stitching. So now that I have this additional top stitching done, I'm going to grab panel piece E. And again, I'm going to mark down 1 3/8 inch from my short edge, centered. I'm going to fold back my double-sided sticky tape just a little bit. Okay, just past where I did that faux top stitching. Let me cut that out. I should not have added double-sided sticky tape all the way past that, because now that is going to end up getting caught on my little ring, and we don't want that. That's bad. Okay, and then I'm just going to add my strap to that 1 3/8 inch mark. Okay, so just like that. So now what we want to do is we want to, our rectangle ring side, we want to top stitch all the way down and all the way back up. We want to start and stop where our stitching stopped here. Okay, you're welcome to sew across if you want. I personally don't like the look of the sewn across line here. So I'm going to start here, go all the way down, across the bottom, and back up and end my thread here in this hole. And then I'm going to add a rivet instead. On the side with your buckle, if you're doing option B buckle, you're going to top stitch from where your threads ended down to your 1 1/2 inch mark, and then you're going to sew from on the opposite side from your 1 1/2 inch mark up to where your stitches ended last time. Again, I don't like to sew across, and instead I'll be adding a rivet there. After you do that top stitching, we're going to take our strap stay, strap bridge, strap anchor, whatever you want to call it. You're going to take that, slide it on up to where you did that faux top stitching, okay? And then you're going to take the rest of your strap and add it to piece E, and then top stitch from the bottom of that, so that 2 inch mark, top stitch down across the bottom and then back up to the other side. After you do that, we're then going to need to pull out piece C, which is our bottom panel piece. Now I've already installed my purse feet, so if you haven't, you may want to pause the video and do that. We need to, on the wrong side, we need to mark up 3/4 of an inch. Sorry, I had to grab a pen. So we want to mark up from our short end 3/4 of an inch. And then 3/8 of an inch. But you should already have that marking there from where you did the stabilizer. And then same thing on the other side. 3/4 of an inch. And then 3/8 of an inch. Okay. You want to add some double-sided sticky tape to either end of your bottom panel. So we'll go ahead and do that. At that 3/4 of an inch mark. Okay, so now we're going to peel that backing off, and fold our short edge up to that 3/4 of an inch mark. Or you could also say that we are folding this in by 3/8 of an inch. Right, just like that. And then I like to take my roller and really roll this out nice and flat. We're going to do that to the other end. Again, up to that 3/4 of an inch mark. And take your roller and roll it out. Now I want you to add, just use some cheap double-sided sticky tape. So I have this cheap double-sided sticky tape that I got off of Temu. I choose to use the cheap tape here because this is really just to hold this in place on panel E, rather than using my nice expensive tape, or more expensive I should say. And I want you to add some tape on the stabilizer, okay, on the stabilizer only. So used to cutting it. On all 4 sides. Do not put this in the seam allowance at all. You will not be a happy camper. This is not meant for to be sewn through. You can also use Dollar Tree double-sided sticky tape. When they have it in stock, I get that quite often. And it's just double-sided sticky tape that we use for purposes of holding things in place that are not going to be sewn through. Okay, so set that to the side. Grab panel E. At this point, you have everything top stitched. So you have your strap connectors top stitched. On the other side, you have your buckle side top stitched. And then we're going to add panel C, which is our bottom panel, to panel E. And we're going to top stitch all 4 sides of this. Okay, so let's do that and we'll come back. Okay, so now we should have panel piece E. We should have our rectangle piece and our strap connector top stitched all the way down on both sides. On the other side, you should have it top stitched with your strap stay and then top stitched all the way down. And then after you did that, you should have added your panel piece C, which is our bottom panel piece, top stitched on either side with your purse feet installed, and then base stitched on the long edge. And then you should have your center marks marked as well. Okay, so now we want to grab exterior panel piece A, and you can do the front or the back, it doesn't matter. I always like to start with my front. We're going to take on the bottom, match up our center points, and then I like to clip all the way along that long bottom edge, that straight edge. First, because it will help it stay in place while I'm doing my side pieces. Okay, so clipped all the way along the bottom, and then I'm going to pull my side pieces up, and I'm going to match up my corner pieces here all the way to the top. Okay, don't leave any extra. You want to match that all the way to the top. If I can get it. It wants to fight me a little bit. All the way to the top, matching up those corners. Add a clip there. And then you're going to clip all the way down your side edge here. When you come to your corner, this pattern does call for you to notch into your curve. You will need to do that in order for this to fit properly. Okay, so you'll need to notch into your gusset in order for this to fit into the curve. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. So again, match up your corner piece here right directly with each other. Pop a clip on that. And same thing, clip all down the side. When you get into your curve, you'll need to clip into your gusset here and match those raw edges up. And then we're going to sew this at 3/8 inch seam allowance. I like to do an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance first, and then go in about where that 1 inch mark is, and then sew the So to start there with your 1/8 inch seam allowance, and then go in and sew your entire 3/8 inch seam allowance. So we're going to do that to the front and back panel. Okay, so now we have our front and back panel sewn to piece E, okay, on both sides. And you can see where I had to clip into my gusset to make it fit, because this pattern does call for that. So now there's a few things that we need to do to this piece before we can move on to the next step. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to clip all the way through all layers in your curve. If you want to trim your seam allowance back, you're welcome to do so. I choose not to trim my seam allowance back. That's just a preferential thing. The next thing I want you to do is where this 1 inch mark is at, I want you to cut into your gusset here up to or close to that 3/8 inch seam. Don't go past it, because obviously you would cut into your bag at that point. So just a little trim up to it. And then on all 8 pieces here, okay, so all 4 pieces here. And then I want you to add some double-sided sticky tape from the top edge down to that 1 inch mark. And we're going to end up folding this seam back on itself. So let's do that, and then we'll come back and finish the exterior. Okay, so I have taken and clipped into my seam allowance and folded those that seam allowance to either side, and I did that on all 4 sections. I did go ahead and add my double-sided sticky tape to that 1 inch line. So if you can see that red line there, added that double-sided sticky tape. I do recommend using a very strong double-sided sticky tape for this, and I actually recommend that you install the double-sided sticky tape before you even sew your exterior pieces together. It just makes it that much easier. But because we're following the pattern, we're going to add that double-sided sticky tape now. However, in the future, when you make this bag, I do recommend adding that double-sided sticky tape to your panels, panel E and exterior panel A, before you sew these together. It just makes it that much easier. So now what we need to do is we need to clip this curve here so that when we fold this down to that 1 inch line, it will create a nice crisp fold along the edge. You could do it without clipping it, but it's just not going to be a nice crisp curve. You also want to make sure that when you're clipping this, we're going to end up folding along this 1/2 inch line here. So when you clip, you really only want to clip no more than 3/8 of an inch. I mean, that's as far as you really want to go. Because you don't want to get too close to this 1/2 inch line, because then you're going to end up seeing that clip on the wrong side when we go to add this to the lining. 2 important clips that I recommend is clipping here at where the seam allowance is at for this portion of the seam allowance, as well as on the side here, clipping right beside the side there. When you go to fold this down, you'll notice that the straight part and the curved part want to kind of fight you a little bit. So if you clip right beside that seam allowance on either side, it'll be a lot easier to do that. So once we are done clipping, we're then going to fold everything down to meet that 1 inch line there. So all the way around, so here on the edge, all the way around. When you get to your side over here, just a quick tip, you want the side part to be on top of the curved part. And you'll see what I'm talking about when you do that. So when you go to fold this over, you want this side part here to be on top of the curved part there. All right, so let's clip into our seam allowance and go ahead and get everything folded down to that 1 inch mark. Okay, so now we should have our exterior part of our bag folded down to that 1 inch line, if you can see that there. Okay, all along both sides. And then even though we're using strong double-sided sticky tape, I still recommend adding some clips just to hold it in place, just as a just in case. And then that will also help to set the double-sided sticky tape so that when we do go to take these clips off, it's not folding up on us. Okay, go ahead and set that off to the side. Pull out panel piece G, which is our lining slip pocket. You should have 2 of those. And your interior lining piece I, and you should have 2 of those. You should also have your markings for your darts on the back side, as well as the 2 little dots, so that we know where to line those darts up. Pull out one of your lining slip pocket pieces. I chose to do a raw edge vinyl rather than doing a lining piece to the slip pocket. I actually like the look of raw vinyl. So if you're going to do that, then you don't need to follow the pattern. If you are using a lining piece for this, you would need to sew your lining pieces right sides together at a 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around, and then leaving a hole at the bottom to churn it. You would churn it, make sure you poke out your corners really, really well, because this is going to be a point of demarcation for our lining panel. If, however, you're choosing to do raw edge vinyl like I am here, you would take and add double-sided sticky tape along your bottom diagonal, across the bottom, other diagonal, and up the other edge. You do want to mark your center parts for this, because we're going to end up splitting this pocket in half. You would then take one of your lining panel pieces, line this up, and we want to mark where these holes are on the right side of our fabric. And we're going to use those marks to know where to place our slip pocket. I do recommend doing the slip pockets on this pattern because it almost helps it shape and mold the gusset part for the inside of the bag, because your lining panel ends up turning into not only your front and back lining panel, but then it also ends up turning into your gusset as well. So you can kind of see how that's going to end up. So this portion here ends up being the actual side part or the gusset part of the interior of the bag. So once you have those marks there, let me find them again. On either side, if you've chosen to add lining to your vinyl here or to the slip pocket, then this would already be sewn, turned right side out, corners poked out, and then we're going to use those dots to line up our slip pocket so that we know where this slip pocket is supposed to go. So make sure it's even on either side, and we're going to line up. You can, guys, I hope you guys can kind of see this on camera. Not really. So there's one dot there. You can see one dot there and one dot here. I can see them really well. On camera you might not be able to, but I can see them here. So you're just going to take and line that up with those dots. It's very important to make sure it's even on both sides. Okay, so when you measure it, this should be perfectly even, because this ends up being your gusset at the end. Okay, I do recommend, just from sewing past ones, that you place this up just slightly above where those bottom holes are. So if you kind of look here on the pattern piece, so I recommend that when you place your slip pocket up, that you go just above these 2 holes here. Okay, don't cover them up, don't go down too far, but that you come up just slightly above those 2 holes, because when we go to sew this in place, if it's too far down, this curve and this portion can actually end up getting caught in your seam allowance down here. I know it seems like it's really far away, but trust when you go to do this, that part can get caught in it. It's also going to help if it's just slightly above when we go to do our zipper pocket that's going to go on the inside. This will then form basically the curve that we're going to have. Well, this ends up being shrunk down because of the darts. If this is just slightly above, so if your panel here is just slightly above those dots, it'll also help when we go to sew these darts together. And it'll also help when this is kind of out of the way a little bit when we go to sew our zipper pocket as well. I know that sounds really confusing, but I promise it'll work. Trust the process. Just make sure that this slip pocket is slightly above that bottom hole here. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and sew in both of our lining slip pockets to our lining panels. Okay, so now we should have both of our lining pockets with our slip pockets installed. You can choose to either split it down the middle or add pin pockets like I did on this one here. And I did this by just measuring my center and then going 3/4 of an inch to either side of that so that I can have some pin pockets there. And then on the other one, I just split it right down the middle and created those slip pockets. Again, making sure that it's just slightly above that bottom hole there, so that when we go to create these darts, it'll be out of the way. All right, go ahead and set these off to the side. Pull out panel J. Now, panel J calls for 2 lining fabrics. Again, I don't mind using raw edge vinyl or keeping my vinyl raw. So I'm actually not going to need a second lining piece in order to create this pocket. If you're going to create the pocket the way that the pattern calls for, you'll want to make sure that you follow the instructions for fusing your interfacing and your stabilizer. If you're using vinyl as a part of this, so 1 piece vinyl, 1 piece cotton, you will not need that stabilizer on the inside of here if you're going to use vinyl. Follow the instructions for creating that zipper pocket with the zipper overlay, or not the zipper overlay, with the zipper strip. But for my purpose, because I'm leaving this raw edged, I'm just simply going to take my zipper over to the wrong side, and I'm going to sew my zipper on. And my zipper will end up being raw edged, but because this is black on black, it's not going to be very noticeable. So we'll do that. Create your zipper pocket on the inside, and then when we come back, we'll start to build our interior part of our purse by attaching this to the lining and creating those darts. Okay, so now that we have our zipper attached to our interior zipper pocket, if you're doing to where you have 2 pieces of this, where you've added the zipper with the zipper facing and you've turned it all right side out and you have an actual lining piece, you'll want to, in 2 of your corners, okay, you'll want to mark up 3/4 of an inch and fold this over to that 3/4 of an inch mark. However, because I'm doing raw edge and I'm leaving my vinyl raw, I just cut 3/8 of an inch off from this, from all 4 edges. So 3/8 from here, here, and around on this side here. And then I went ahead and I added double-sided sticky tape. So we're going to add this down. So pull all that backing off of your tape here. We're going to line up our edges. It's very important. Make sure that this is nice and straight and even. Across the bottom. Kind of line those center marks up. Okay, so just like that. So now we have it taped in place, and we should have now what looks like a half of an envelope, is what I like to refer to it as. Now you can, if you want, you can baste this in place if you're doing raw edge vinyl. If you're doing it to where you had to fold your edges under here at the corner, then you would want to top stitch those because this will not get caught in the seam allowance of our lining panel. So you do want to top stitch those. Because I'm leaving this raw edged, I just use some really strong double-sided sticky tape to hold everything in place. So go ahead and set this off to the side. Next, we want to pull out our zipper and panel piece D. Okay, panel piece D. Now in the pattern, there is a portion that I do agree with because I'm using directional fabric. I want to make sure that this curved edge is at the top. So you can see that there's a difference between, there's a curved edge and a straight edge. So we're going to take our pieces and we want to orientate them just like this. I have found that if you do it this way, it does make it much easier to match these pieces up when you're done marking them and everything. So on our exterior side, we're going to mark 3/8, or well, we're going to mark 3/4 of an inch, and then we're going to fold in 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so we're going to fold this edge up like that. On the lining side, on this side, we're going to mark 3/4 of an inch and fold up by 3/8 of an inch. If you keep them oriented like this, you'll know that this one matches with this one, and that this one matches with this one, okay? So I have found that if you do it that way and you leave it oriented like this, that it does tend to work out to where you'll know which to match each other. The other thing that we need to do with our zipper, we need to take the end of our zipper and fold it down and create that 90-degree turn. And you can either hand stitch this in place. I always just take a lighter and kind of melt the edges to hold it in place. But you can hand stitch it, you can glue it, you can stick it under the sewing machine and sew it, however you would like to do it. But this does need to be turned down to make that 90-degree turn. So just like this. So just like that, okay? And again, you can hold it in place. I definitely don't recommend holding it in place with clips because when you go to add it to your panels, it's just going to come undone. So either hand stitch it, stick it under the sewing machine and sew it, or do like I do and just burn the edges to melt them down to hold them in place. Okay, so let's do this. I will do this on camera with you all. So you can see I've got my exterior and I've got my interior. So on the left-hand side, so this is my left. As soon as I stop throwing pins. Sorry, I was throwing pins all over the place. So this is my left-hand side here. On the left-hand side, I'm going to mark this at 3/4 of an inch. Okay, this is my exterior. On the right-hand side, I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch. Now, I like to rotate this around just because it makes it easier. But if you notice, it doesn't matter now. It's still on the same side. So we'll line this up and mark these at 3/4 of an inch as well. The important part is that you match up the appropriate pairs when you go to sew the zipper on. So then I'll just rotate that back around so that the orientation is proper. So we're going to add our double-sided sticky tape, fold this down by an 3/8 of an inch seam. Make sure that you're lining up, because this top part has a curve here, make sure that you're lining up the straight edge to that 3/4 of an inch and not the top curve. So if you notice there's a little hangover there, and that's fine, that's not going to be seen. But make sure that straight edge is folded over and straight along the bottom edge. Okay. Once we do that, we also want to mark or notch our center pieces. Okay. And then we're going to attach our zipper to this. So right side of lining panel to wrong side of zipper, you're going to attach that zipper all the way down. Okay. And then you're going to take the matching panel and add that, and sew a 1/4 of an inch and then a 1/4 of an inch going up. Okay, so let me do one with you. Let me get this back to the way it was. Let me do one panel with you, and then you can do the other panel on your own. Okay, those are my two matching ones. Sometimes you just got to do it back to the way it was. Make sure you grab your right double-sided sticky tape, not the cheap one. Add your tape. To my exterior, and then add tape to my interior. We're going to fold this up by 3/8 of an inch to that line we drew. And kind of roll that out a little bit. So then it should look just like that. So this is my straight edge here. This is my curved edge. And so I've got it folded over by 3/8 of an inch. Okay, so let me do that with my lining. I guess another way that you could think about this is that your exterior and your lining should be mirror images. That might help you to kind of look at it that way. So if I was to hold these side by side, this is both my straight edge here, so they're mirror images at that point. So I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to notch the centers of my panel. Okay. On the side with no fold, so this is my unfolded edge, this is my folded edge. On the side with no fold on it, we're going to measure in 3/8 of an inch and make a mark. We're going to lay down some double-sided sticky tape on the straight edge. Okay, so this is my straight edge, this is my curved edge. So double-sided sticky tape, as soon as I find the end. Goodness, oh, there it is. We're going to add double-sided sticky tape at that 3/8 inch mark that we made all the way to the edge. Right, so all we're doing is we're creating a zipper gusset, or a zipper panel, if you want to call it that too. Okay. Let me fix my zipper real quick. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm doing the right zipper for this example. So you can see just by melting the ends of the zipper here, you can see it's just a lot quicker and a little bit easier to do rather than trying to sew it or hand sew it. So go ahead and separate your zipper out. You want to take right side of lining panel to wrong side of zipper. Okay, so this is my right side of my lining, wrong side of my zipper. And we're going to line the teeth up at that 3/8 inch mark. Along that straight edge. So just like that. Go ahead and lay you down some more double-sided sticky tape. Okay, take your exterior panel, folded edge to folded edge, right on top. Okay. Sure, if you've ever created a zipper gusset before, you're probably very familiar with this. I always like to take and line up my folded edge first because that's important that that's lined up. It will be noticeable if it's not. Okay, all the way down. So just pop a couple clips on here, nothing real big, just enough to hold it in place so it doesn't shift. Okay, so now we're going to, on this straight edge, we're going to sew 1/4 inch down the long straight edge. We're going to pivot and sew 1/4 inch this way. We'll clip our corners here, turn it right side out, and then we'll be ready to top stitch it at that point. So I'm going to go do the other one, and then we'll come back. Okay, so now that we have panel D sewn to our zipper and top stitched, we're ready to move on to the next part. So we need to pull out panel piece F. So go ahead and set one of your panel Ds to the side and grab just one of your panel F pieces. If you haven't notched your center, go ahead and notch your center. Okay. When you're looking at panel piece F, this part here is the top, okay? This part here is the bottom. So you can see that there's a difference in the curve. So the part where the curve is going in is the top, and the part where the curve is coming out is the bottom. You'll also notice that we have straightaways on the top and bottom. Okay, we need to cut just little notches right at those where the straightaway meets the curve. So let's do that first. So I'm just going to take my little nippers here, and I'm just going to cut a little notch. Nothing too big. Definitely don't want to go past 1/4 inch. We're going to do that on all 4 pieces. Okay. I do also recommend at this point to mark on your top here, mark 1/2 inch down and 1 inch down. Okay, that's where we're going to end up folding our pieces down for the drop-in lining. So mark your, if you take and mark your straightaway or your straight edge at 1/2 inch and then at 1 inch, you can then take the pattern piece in order to get that curve nice and clean. Take the pattern piece and line that up with it on either side, and then just draw your curve in. Okay, so you'll want to do that first before we do the next step. But while we've got this here in front of us, we want to take this curve, this bottom curved edge here, and kind of flip it over this way. We want to take our exterior part of our zipper panel and match it up to the bottom edge of piece F. Okay, right sides together, or you can say exterior pieces together, and you're gonna clip along that curved edge. Okay, don't try and make it go straight. You'd want to keep it nice and curved. Okay, just like this. You're going to do this to both panel piece F. So do it to this one, and then also do it to this one as well. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we'll base this in place, mark our 1 inch and our 1/2 inch seam allowance on the back side, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we should now have panel piece D basted to panel piece F. We should also have panel piece F marked at a 1/2 inch and 1 inch down on both pieces. Okay, go ahead and set one of these to the side and grab one of your lining panel pieces. It doesn't matter which one. And we're going to attach this zipper, gusset, and top lining piece to our lining. So let me kind of turn this around so you guys can see it. So you should have your center notched in your lining. We're going to line up this curve, this top curve, with our lining panel piece. Okay, we're only going to clip, just for now, we're only going to clip along the curve until you come up to this straight part here. So you can see where we've got a little bit of a corner there. So I only want you to clip along this curve here. Make sure you line up your raw edges nice and together. And same on the other side. And then make sure you line up right where that corner is. So you can see the corner of my panel here, right where that corner is. And then you can see the corner of my lining panel as well. So we're going to line those two pieces up right there. Okay, and then we're going to base this in, or we're going to stitch this in place at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So we'll do that first. Don't line up, don't clip those straight edges just yet, okay? We want to wait just a second before we do that. So if you need to kind of pull it and finagle it to get that lined up again. As you're going around that curve, you're going to need to slide your lining panel out of the way. So make sure you do that because you don't want to get any puckers or get it caught. Make sure your zipper stays out of the way. And then again, pull that lining back down to match up with that corner spot. Okay, once you've done that, now we want to go back and we want to line up our straight pieces. So you're going to need to kind of, so right now you can see where it's wanting to go above our lining panel. So we want to pull this back down straight, line everything up, okay, clip that in place, and you may need to use, you know, a couple clips to hold it there because it does want to kind of fight you a little bit. Then I always just add a clip down the side to hold it. Do that on both sides. Let me get a pin and pin this zipper out of the way. We definitely don't want to get that caught up. Okay, so just like that on either end. And now we're going to sew this straight part at 3/8 of an inch. So what happens is this straight part, when we sew our lining panels together, this straight part ends up being a part of the gusset that goes down. That way it'll match up to the exterior part of the bag. Do one side and then come down and do the other side. Right, trim your threads. Okay. Now we're going to fold our top panel piece up, and we want to really press our lining panel out of the way. I recommend using a seam roller. Really get that pressed down. You can also iron this. I would just be very, very careful, especially if you're using vinyl. You don't want to accidentally melt your vinyl. I just find using a seam roller works just as well. Okay, and then we're going to top stitch along this lining panel. Just at 1/8 of an inch on the actual lining panel and not the top panel. When you come to where that corner portion is, take and pivot your foot around. That'll really help to define that straight corner part. Okay, so as we're coming back to the top of our curve, we get to where that corner is, we're going to pivot it straight and then continue sewing. Okay, so just like that. So now we're going to do the same thing to our other lining panel piece, but I wanted to go ahead and tell you kind of the next step of what we're going to do here, so that you can do this to your other lining panel piece as well. So you're going to flip this over, and where we made lines with a dot, okay, lines with a dot, this portion right here, this portion here that goes up to this dot, that's one dart. So we need to play connect the dots. You can also do this as part of your prep. That would be fine too. But having these lines marked out does help to line the darts up a lot easier. Okay, same thing on the other side. Just line up the line with the dot. Don't fall into a hole like I did. Same thing on this side. Okay, and you're going to do the same thing to your other lining panel piece as well. So now that we've got these lines marked here, we're going to take and fold our lining panel piece together, and we're going to line up those lines for the dart so that we can form that dart. Okay, so just like this. And so you can see it almost matches up with the corner of our slip pocket too, which is exactly what we want. So just kind of smooth it out there. Pop a clip on there. I would even recommend doing two, one at the bottom, one at the top. And you're going to sew on that line, on the line here for the dart, okay? So that line right there. And then you're going to do the same thing for your next dart. Don't do in between here, okay? So I kind of fold this out. You can see I've got my two here, and then I've got my two here. Don't line these up though, okay? Just your darts. So you'll sew that one, and then you'll line up your next one and sew it, and then your fourth one, third and fourth one on the other side as well. So I'll do one, and then I'll show you what that looks like. So I just like to make sure that I'm nice and lined up. And then I'm going to sew directly on top of that line. Trim my threads. Okay, so just like that. So you can see where I sewed directly on top of the lines. So now you're going to do the same thing with your second one, and then your third and your fourth. Now, what I like to do is, and this is preferential, you can either fold your dart over to one side or the other, but then you end up getting pretty thick here because you're going to end up folding this one that way as well. So instead, what I like to do is actually cut my darts open. So like that. And then actually fold my darts to one side or the other, and then I'll end up tacking this in place with the sewing machine. Okay, so do that to your, so all of your darts on this panel here, and then go ahead and complete your other lining panel with your other D and F panel. Okay. Okay, so now we should have both of our lining panel pieces done. We should have our darts sewn and split open and pulled out of the way. That just makes it nice and even at that point on both panels. I did on one of my panels, I went ahead and added my double-sided sticky tape to the 1-inch mark. So let's do that to our second piece one here. And what I like to do is I like to do my straight edge, cut my tape, do my curved edge, cut my tape, and then do my straight edge. So let's do that. This just makes it a lot easier when we go to turn everything under for the drop-in lining if the tape is already on there while it's nice and flat, rather than after it's together, which I really recommend doing that with your exterior panel too. It just makes it that much easier to handle it. Okay, and then I'll take my seam roller and just roll that out. Okay, so grab one of your lining panels, and we want to measure from our last dart where we sewed our last dart. We want to measure up from that 3/4 of an inch, which if you flared your darts out like I did, it's actually at the very end of this first dart is 3/4 of an inch. So you can really use that as a reference. So I'll kind of get a little bit closer to show you. So let me show you from this back side. So if I measure 3/4 of an inch, you can see where the end of that dart here ends up being 3/4 of an inch. And so you can use that as a reference for your 3/4 of an inch. So we need to grab our zipper pocket, and you want to orientate your zipper pocket so that if it's closing to the left, we want our zipper that's going to close to the left. Okay, so we don't want to have the interior pocket closing to the right and our main zipper pocket closing to the left. So make sure that those are orientated the right way. Let me notch my center here just so I can see it. Line up the center of your zipper pocket to the center of your lining panel. Just the bottom portion for right now. Go along here, along the edge. And I want you to notice the end of your zipper pocket should meet the end of your dart right here. So the very end of that dart should meet the end of your zipper pocket. So if it's not, make sure you just kind of readjust it and everything, but that's where it should end. All right, go ahead and baste this in place, just the bottom edge. And it can be a little finicky at first, but just try and hold it in place while you do that. Got my threads twisted. Hang on one second. Make sure it's all laid nice and flat, that you're not getting any puckers or buckles underneath it. Okay. Now we want to attach the sides of our divided zipper pocket to the sides of our lining gusset. So right at the edge of where that very last dart folds over, we're going to line up the corner of our pocket with that part. Or if you're measuring down, it would be 3/4 of an inch away from this seam here. Okay, so 3/4 of an inch going that way. I just line it up with the edge of that dart. Okay, we're going to clip that in place. Just like this. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. All the way up. And then we're going to baste this in place at 1/8 of an inch. Okay. Make sure that none of this corner part right here is getting caught. Okay, keep that out of the way and sew just up the side. Again, it wants to kind of fight you a little bit, but don't let it. If you need to add another clip on there to hold it in place, you can do that. And just make sure that everything is laid nice and smooth on the inside. Okay, trim your threads, and then we're going to do it on the opposite side. Okay, so same thing, just kind of fold it down to where it's flat on your bed, on the bed of your machine. Line up that raw edge. Sew it all the way down. So now you should have something that looks like this. So we have our divider pocket attached to one side of our lining. So now we want to grab our other lining piece and we're going to attach it on the other side. Okay, so here's the inside of my one lining, and then here's the other side. So we're going to line up our centers. We want to line up our darts, and then of course we always want to make sure that our top is matched as well. So let's do that, and then we're going to sew this in place at a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, so I have everything clipped in place really quick. I did want to make mention that when you're going around these curved edges, these darts want to try and get in your way. Just take and push them out of the way. As you're sewing, feel underneath, and as you're sewing, you can kind of feel underneath here and grab on the inside and kind of pull things out of the way nice and tight. Also, because of the way this center pocket is, it wants to try and pull things inwards. So while you're sewing one side, go ahead and pull it all nice and straight. So what I do is I grab on the other side here where my two slip pockets are, and I just pull that straight out so that it's not trying to suck its way back in. And then that'll create you a nice straight line. So we'll sew around this at a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and as you're going around your curve, just take and tuck those darts out of the way as you sew them. Otherwise, it'll end up doing like it's doing right here, and you'll end up catching your seam allowance, and you'll have a really big pucker at that point, and just like it's wanting to do right here and here. So make sure that you're tucking this out of the way as you're going around this curve. Okay, so let's sew this at a 3/8 seam allowance. Okay, so we now have our lining sewn in place. So on both sides, all the way around. So now what we want to do is, because we added our double-sided sticky tape before we started sewing, we just want to take and kind of clip that away so that it's not in the way. I would say try and rip it off, but then you could potentially end up ripping your stitches, and you definitely don't want to do that. So I just take my little snips and I just snip it out of the way. Okay, and then we want to cut our seam so we can open this seam up just above, so just above where we sewed our lining on. You just want to fold that open. Okay, so we're going to add double-sided sticky tape to all four sides, and then once we do that, we're going to open those seams up, and then just like we did with the exterior, we're going to clip, and you want to clip first here at this straight edge right there, and then clip along your curve on both sides. So let's do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, now that we have our lining top tucked down to that 1-inch line, and we've added our double-sided sticky tape to the very bottom edge of the vinyl. If you do it all the way at the bottom edge, you'll have plenty of room to top stitch this to where it's not going to get caught in the seam allowance. So just like this. I'll kind of show you on the other side here. So all the way down. If you have a pair of, I call them seam pressers, I do recommend taking either a pair of seam pressers or some non-serrated pliers and really pressing this seam right here out. It is a little on the thick side, and then it'll be even thicker when we add it to the exterior part as well. So now we are ready to turn our exterior piece right side out. And so I take and I push on my corner here and just push it all inward. You really want to try not to bend it up too much, especially if you're using Decoville Light, because it will show those wrinkles. So we definitely want to try not to do that. And then you want to be kind of be a little gentle because you don't want to pop any stitches or any of your seams as well. So once I get to kind of a point here where I can just kind of flip it, I'll just kind of flip it out, give it a nice little pull. Okay, and then once I have it turned out, then I'm just going to push all of my curves out of the way, get them all nice and pushed out real good, all four corners. All right, just like this. I'm going to move this camera up just a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. So just like this, and we have it so all turned right side out now. We still have all of our clips here at the top. If you want, you can pull these clips off now, and we're going to drop our lining into this exterior part. Okay, so just like that. So we're going to, I like those pin pockets that I created here. So actually you can see it better on this side. So the pin pockets that I created here, I like for this to be on the back side of my purse. So I'm going to make sure that it slips in that way. So I'm just going to slip that down in there. And then I'm just going to reach in and I'm going to smooth everything out. Push everything down real good, down into the corners. Now, I like to clip everything before I actually pull my double-sided sticky tape off. So I take it here on the side, and I want to line my centers up on the side first. Little part there that's going to have to be pushed in while I'm sewing. So I just take and line up my center of my interior gusset with the center of my exterior gusset. So you should have your center marked on that. So I just line that center up, pop a clip on there, and then where we created that corner here on the inside, we want to match it up with the corner here on the exterior as well. So match that up on both sides. And then we want to do that to the opposite side as well. So same thing, I'm just going to find my centers, line my centers up. Line up my corners. So the corner of my interior with the corner of my exterior. You see I've got a little piece that keeps wanting to pooch out. I guess I didn't quite get enough tape on that spot, so we'll definitely have to make sure that it gets caught when I take the tape off. Okay, so once I have my two side pieces done, so I've got my two side pieces done, now I'm going to come to the middle portion here, and again I'm going to find my center, and I'm going to line that center up first. Pop a clip on, and then I'm going to clip the rest of the way. And just a few clips. You don't want to have to do a whole lot of clips because you're going to end up taking all these clips out when you go to do your double-sided sticky tape. But just make sure that everything is lined up with your top and it's nice and even. You're not getting any big buckles or anything like that. Okay, do the same thing on the other side. So find my center, line that up, and then just a couple of clips. I know sometimes I can go a little overboard with clipping, but... Okay, now once I'm happy with this and everything is lined up and I can see I'm not going to have any puckers or bulges where maybe, you know, something was a little too big or it's off turned one way or the other. So once I'm happy here, I'll then go back through and unclip just sections at a time and lay my double-sided sticky tape down. So for right now, though, I'm just going to set this off to the side. And I want you to grab both of your handle pieces. So you should have 2 handle pieces that are 2 inches wide by whatever length you chose them to be, whether you're doing the crossbody portion or you're just doing the handbag portion. That's totally up to you. But we're going to mark these down the center, just like we did with our strap connectors. We're going to fold them to the center, okay? Once they're both folded to the center, okay, like this, we're then going to take and put them wrong sides together, and we're going to top stitch down either side of the handle itself or of the strap. And that will adhere both of these pieces together, and it will also cover up that middle line that we're going to have from folding them to the center. So let's do that. Go ahead and do the center marking and add and fold them over to the center, and then add them both to each other, wrong sides together, and top stitch the whole thing. And then go ahead and take away your double-sided sticky tape on the inside if you have it. And we're going to go ahead and top stitch the entire of the outside of the bag. Okay, so now the top part of your bag should be top stitched all the way around. You should also have your strap top stitched as well. Sorry, no, that's kind of hard to see. How about that? So that should be top stitched as well. And you can see that they were put together wrong sides together and then top stitched. Okay, so now we need to make some markings on our strap. One second, let me make sure I'm telling you right. So on one side, or one end of your strap, we're going to mark just in the center, just a dot in the center. We're going to mark 6.5 inches. So 6.5 inches on the first one. And all the way from that edge up 6.5 and just mark a dot. And then we're going to move down and we're going to do another mark at 5 inches. Three and a half inches. And then 2 inches. Okay, so that should be on one side of your strap. On the other side, you're going to mark 5/8 and 2 1/8. So 2 1/8 and 5/8. Okay. Go ahead and punch those holes. And I'm just going to use my handheld hole puncher. You can get this on Amazon. It's just a leather hole puncher. And I just noticed that is completely not centered. So always check and make sure that your markings are centered. So let me mark that again. All right, and go ahead and punch those holes. Okay, so just like this. So on one side, you should have 4 holes And on the other side, you should have 2 holes. The side with 2 holes is going to be fit around our rectangle ring. So just like this. And we're going to line those holes up and put our rivet through it. Let me just clip that in place so you can see. So just like that. If you have a strap end that you want to put on here, put that strap end after you set your rivet. Okay, don't do it beforehand. All right, and then making sure that our strap is not twisted, we're going to fold it over here to the other side. Put our buckle tongue on there. Slip it down past our strap bridge. And then go ahead and install your strap end if you're going to put one on. And then the last thing would be to attach our zipper to our zipper tape and add the zipper end to it, and then your purse is all done. Wow, what a fantastic pattern. It comes together so quick and so easy, you'll be amazed with the results. The pattern that we made today, as I mentioned in the beginning, was this one here. We sewed this together and it came out fantastic. All of the vinyl that I've used for all of my patterns that I've shown come from the Peanut Gallery Marketplace, and you can find them on Facebook. Please be sure to show off all of your beautiful makes on Creative Bag Making, and be sure to tag myself, Brandy Mabe, and then also tag Inaliti Design in your post. I just can't wait to see what you guys come up with. This is just an absolutely fantastic pattern. I know sometimes doing drop-in linings can be a little scary at times, but this one just comes together so quick and so easy. I just know that you'll love it. You're just gonna love it. You gotta trust me on that one. Hopefully, you guys learned some new techniques today. You learned something a little bit different. Maybe even learned how to do a little bit of edge coating on your strap and how to do those drop-in linings to where they're nice and seamless. This one came out absolutely fantastic. Of course, we have our wonderful purse feet that are here on the bottom. I'm just amazed at how beautiful this bag turned out. I really enjoyed you guys joining in with me today to learn how to make the LeBelle Baguette and handbag. The instructions are for both sizes, small and large. I just can't wait to see them in the Creative Bag Making group. Thanks so much and have a great day.